Hey everyone, welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. So today I want to talk a little bit about authenticity and how we can sacrifice that as people with ADHD or neurodivergent. I think I've spoke about masking before. I think that comes into play quite a bit as well. But I've struggled myself with, taking medication, knowing if it was the right thing for me, and having fear around it suppressing my authentic self, and wanting maybe to go back to how I used to be before I started taking ADHD medication, even though I know things were really, really hard for me then. And I've kind of been going backwards and forwards, I think. And I've kind of come to a place where I've been thinking a lot about how I have suppressed my authentic self a lot, and how society, the world, the systems around us kind of encourage us to suppress who we really are, our desires, our needs, things that, just our behaviours and just things we're interested in and all this kind of stuff. I think it's hard to truly know yourself because there's always more to explore, but I also, only really feel truly content when I am feeling like myself. And I tend to find that a lot of people with ADHD are self-employed, or they want to be self-employed, or they don't want to be tied down with, enormous responsibilities that bring in, more income, for example. And we kind of just tend to prefer to try and live more minimally maybe, but more geared towards who we feel that we are as our core being, if that makes sense. So I have been thinking about this a lot, and it's hard for me to get my words out on it, but I think what's really, really important if you start taking ADHD medication is not to lose yourself just because you can be a different way now, and conform more to expectations. I think that when you start to do that, you start to lose who you are, and you forget the things that kind of make you who you are. And the more you do that, the more difficult, not that life becomes more difficult, it just becomes slightly less bearable, and then it can become a real struggle to get back, and you have to go through some kind of transformation to really realise what you're doing to yourself, in order to get back to where you feel your best, your most authentic self. And I feel that and from my research as well, especially in childhood, throughout your teenage years as well, that we may start to suppress parts of ourselves, and we sacrifice our authenticity for attachment. And I mean, that's really self-explanatory, I think. But basically, we have this inherent, this wiring within us, in our biology, that makes it so we need other people, and we need to, form attachments with other people. And often when you have ADHD, and especially if you feel that you're not being accepted for who you truly are, and cared for who you truly are, and you feel unsafe, and that could be your parents, that could be your grandparents, that could be people at school, that could be teachers at school, it could be anybody who makes you feel this way, makes you feel like you really should conform, otherwise life isn't going to be safe for you. Then you might choose the attachment over your authentic self, and you suppress your authentic self, and it really does a lot of damage to yourself, honestly. I've done this several times in my life, and I kind of was going back there again, and I've kind of reawakened and kind of seen the light in some ways, and decided, you know, screw what everybody else thinks. I'm going to do what's best for me, and I'm going to live authentically. And if you live authentically, you're also giving permission for other people to live authentically as well. And if other people see something within you and they don't like that, it actually shows a lot about themselves. And there's a lot of stuff you can read up on this. It's not just, I'm not just talking a load of crap. It is pretty interesting to research if you're interested in that, and it's tied into trauma a lot of the time as well. And with ADHD, I find that especially if we've been undiagnosed, we probably experience more trauma than other people. My stand isn't working, but yet we're constantly being told and given all this feedback from the outside world that we don't fit in, or that we aren't going to succeed, or we aren't going to be safe if we are, you know, being our normal selves. And so unconsciously we suppress that part of ourselves that we are trying to hide so much from everybody else, and we try and stay still when we're not very capable of staying still, for example, you know. And we dumb down our emotions, we dumb down ourselves, and you know, we really suffer because of that. And I feel that I've done that quite a few times in my life. I've, you know, wanted to be taken seriously when actually I'm quite, sometimes I feel like I put myself down and say childish, but when really I'm just being playful, and, you know, just things like that. And I'm ignoring the stuff that makes me happy, and I'm just trying to conform and survive in this world. And I think survival is one of the main factors as to why that we might be like this, you know. And going past those teenage years into adulthood, things become, or for me anyway, and I assume for other people, things can become a lot harder when you have ADHD, because suddenly you've been given so much more responsibility in your life, and you know, duty and all of this, and we just have to do what we have to do to get through. And often that means suppressing who we really are, suppressing our sensitive nature, suppressing parts of ourselves that we really like ourselves, and we feel like, yeah, this is authentically myself, but we can't, or we don't feel safe doing so, like revealing that, and it's not appropriate and professional and all of this kind of stuff. So, you know, it's not, you've not grown up, you know. And I've struggled with this a lot, and, you know, it can even be in like the way you dress. You might be trying to dress more like an adult when really you just want to wear dungarees, and then when people say something about you wearing dungarees, you might be like, oh god, like they obviously think I'm childish, but that's only because of their own views about like what they expect people to dress like if they're like an adult or something. Like, it's just really, to me, it's just really stupid, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense from my part, but it's because of like their own beliefs and things, and that they're living in this kind of world that expects you to be a certain way. And, you know, and I the reason I talk about this is because I, you know, found myself thrown into the world, and I started to struggle so much more. Life became really hard, and I felt like I couldn't be myself, and I felt like I couldn't relate to other people either, and everything was becoming harder and harder to deal with, and I was so frustrated and overwhelmed. And then obviously I discovered that I had ADHD medication, but just before then I started to come back to myself around the sort of time that I started to spend a lot more time in nature, going on days out, just being creative whenever I felt like it, and kind of living in flow, rather than, which is like my natural way of being, rather than being like put into a box and you know, doing things because people in authorities tell you to do things, or authorities tell you to do things and to be a certain way. But the truth is we're all different, and to be authentic is different to every single person. And for me, I know how I can be authentic and live that way, but it's part of myself that I still have to hide. On some levels I still have to hide it, and it just, I think the reason why it triggers me so much and it bothers me so much, and it makes me stressed and anxious and everything, is because of all those years when I was told that I wasn't, it wasn't acceptable, the way I wasn't acceptable, and I was silly and all these other kind of things I was told. And you know, feedback doesn't just come through words, it comes through looks that people give you, it comes through your own perceptions, and if you're already insecure about something, it can be, you know, something there's a lot, you start to believe something when it's not actually true, and especially I think that's how possibly we develop rejection sensitive dysphoria as well, and of course that comes into play as well, which I'm not going to get into because I don't want to make this video too long. I just wanted to encourage you to, you know, if you feel like you're not feeling like yourself, for whatever reason, just to take a day for yourself. If you can do that, of course, take some time for yourself and rediscover who you are and what brings you joy and what makes you feel like you know, because that's important. Okay, see you in another video.